All right, guys, welcome back to the Unit 3 Target 3 notes. Mrs. Custodio did an awesome job of getting us started and explaining what a function is, how we determine whether a relation is just a relation or whether a relation is a highly specialized function. All right, and now here's the deal. What we're going to talk about in Target 3B is language, some new vocabulary, and some new way to notate things that are specific to only functions, not to something that is just a relation. And I think about this in terms of movies that I like to watch, specifically movies that have to do with like military, right? When you're just a regular foot soldier, a regular kind of grunt in the army, or swabbing the deck in the Navy, you're not privy, you're not privileged to some of the language and secret passwords and codes that the commanding officers and the higher ups get access to, right? And so when a relation is highly specialized, kind of higher level as a function, there's going to be new specific language and ways to write things, both graphically and in an equation, that are specific to functions. And the reason this is important is because when we use function notation, we're telling somebody that what we're working with is a function. Now, you're going to see we can still use what I like to call relation language and relation notation in a function. That's okay, because a function is a relation. Right? That's always the foundation of a function, is that it's a relation first. But when something is a function, it gets a new vocabulary, it gets a new way to notate things that is only for a function. So if we see that notation, if we see that language, we immediately know that what we're working with is indeed a function. All right, so let's dive into this here. Our function language does have a name, and it is called function notation. So let's talk about some details of this new special language that a function gets to use, but just something that's a relation does not get to use, right? And one of the big primary aspects of this new language is that we are going to replace how we express the range in a function, right? Previously, we've used y, and y, the y coordinate, is the range of a relation. Now, we can still use y. We're going to be using y at times as to represent the range of a function. But the what we get here with a function is a new way, a way that only is used in a function to express the range. And that is this symbol here, f of x. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's what we're saying, f parentheses x close parentheses. This symbol, this kind of funny looking it almost looks like two variables, but it's really just one, is how we express the range of a function. So again, if we see y, well, we know it's a relation, but it's kind of unclear. Is it a relation that's only a relation, or is it a relation that's also a function? If we see f of x, we know automatically that, yes, it is a relation, but we know for sure that that relation is also a function. And here's the big takeaway, guys, is that f of x and y are really the same thing. All right, they are expressing the range, the y coordinates, the input output values of our function. What we get after we put x in and get something out, that's our y value, that's our range, and that's not going to change. That is also one of the biggest mistakes people make, is they think that they're different, and we're going to talk about a way to remember. We're going to come back to that in just a minute or two. All right, let's talk about our symbol here. F of x, this is read, as I've said a couple times, f of x. It's not f times x, right? So let's just make sure we make a note of that. This is not f times x. So please, please, please never multiply f and x together and try and simplify them. It's not f times x. And the important thing to remember also is that it is one variable. And this is a little confusing because it certainly looks like two variables. There's an f and there's an x. There's two letters, so there's two variables. But what we have to think about is that f of x and y are the same thing. If y is one variable, then f of x together, that entire symbol, is just one variable. All right, now, one other aspect to function notation here is that F is the most common letter used in this symbol, in this notation. But if we are working with multiple functions at the same time, that letter can change. So F is the most common, but we can have other letters like G of X or H of X. So, we could have F of X, but that's really no different than G of X or H of X, right? Or A of X, or pretty much any letter you want to put in front of X there, right? B of X, all of these would be acceptable function notation. And the only reason we change that letter is because if the functions are different, we don't want to call two functions by the same name. It can get confusing. Maybe you've been in that situation in life where you've had two friends or two people in the room that have the same name, and you just say the one name and both reply. Well, it can be confusing. So that's why we change that letter. And as we said here, the key is that the reason we change the letter is so that they have different names, so it is easy to communicate. All right. Again, the big takeaway that we want to specify is that F of X and Y both represent the range, right? And range, or we can still think of them as Y coordinates, right? That's going to be a really important thing to remember. And when I talked to the AAT teachers a few years ago, which I am one now, this was the biggest thing that they felt was lacking in understanding function notation, is kids just did not remember that these were the same thing. So, in my creative brain, I thought, how can I really, really lock in this fact to someone's mind so that it will never leave, no matter what they do, no matter how hard they try, even on their deathbed, they will remember that F of X and Y both are the same thing, and they describe the range. And I came up with a little music video based off of a popular song at the time to help you with that. So here is the very famous and very popular music video, What Does FX Say?
Now, we all know what the fox says, but the real question is, what does FX say? What does FX say? What does FX say? Why? What does FX say? What does FX say? What does FX say? Why? Why?